saying that it is not good enough to know a person, right? Because, like you have a girlfriend or boyfriend for a few years, but still, you don't know each other that well sometimes. So with half an hour interview, I know it is difficult, but this is also a very important step. It's just like computer. You heard about they say computer, garbage in, garbage out, right? So you say, how can you learn about the employee a little bit more, knowing their moral development and other personalities? Then I would say, for example, when I was doing the HR managers, when I'm doing hiring, I will look at one thing is that I may look at what is his past performance. Sometimes you can say that if someone keep changing jobs, every 6 months or a year, then more or less telling you that this workers is not settled down yet. If he's going to work for you, most likely he is going to work for you for 6 months or a year, and then he is going to move somewhere else. So you can look at the employee's past practice, may have give you some idea about what is going on, right? And sometimes you can ask your employee, your applicant, that why they want to leave job, and asking them a lot of things that what they did in the past. Hopefully, that will give you some hints on, what kind of personalities that this employee have. So, for example, one time, um, one applicant, came and applied job. That time I asked him, why you quit the job and want to come and work for me? And he mentions that he had some argument with his boss. Um, so I asked him, what kind of argument? Because arguing with your boss is not necessary always is the worker's fault. So he gave me, explained to me the situation. Then I was thinking, this employee is pretty good because that he disagree with the boss for a very good reason. So one thing we can start looking at is that what kind of employee we have. So first thing is working on the selection. Now, second is that we can develop some code of ethics and decision rules. Because we already mentioned, right? Organization structure may affect someone whether they are ethical and unethical. Because, like, code of ethics means that it's a formal statement of an organization. What are the primary values and ethical rules it expects its employee to follow? So even if we are a teachers, teaching in Hang Seng University give me a code of ethics that as a teacher, what should I follow? So I cannot just give you all A's, so that you all like me, but you haven't learned anything, that is violate the code of ethics. Now, so you say, is it really company doing that? Yes. If you go up to the internet, you will find that a lot, almost, I did that, almost all the big corporations, you will be able to find that code of ethics. They are very detailed, explain to the company what they can do and what they cannot do. you know. So even Hang Seng you have that kind of code of ethics, that telling as a teacher what should you do. Now let me show you. All right. Let me show you one from Coca-Cola. All right. Okay. Oh. Can you see it? I cannot see my. Oh, I can see your writing. Let me see if I can. find my bar. See, no. I don't know where the bar goes. Okay, here, written one. No, doesn't work. All right, now, so I cannot see your writing, but I just go ahead and show you this. Uh, this is from Coca-Cola. The company have something called Code of Business Conduct, and telling their workers, if you work for Coca-Cola company, what are the rules and what are the value they have. Now, they start out with the second page. They say, act with integrity, be honest, follow the law, comply with the code, and be accountable. So this is what they are telling their workers. So in the book, actually the book have 40 some pages. So they are very clearly not ambiguity and unclear. They were talking about what do we mean by, acting integrity around the growth. What is expect for everyone? What is expect from the managers? When written approval, when you need to need the written approval. So they always also talk about integrity in the company. What are the conflict of interest? So it is a very long one, and if you work there, you'll probably get a chance to read this and you'll know the very details. Number is acting with integrities, and now see here, I'm not going to go through it, but you can see that the company have what is very clear. Here say acting with integrity around the goal. What is expect to everyone. Comply with the code and the law, and what should you do, and what is expected of the managers. So manager also need to promote a culture of ethics and compliance, and so all the way down. So here is a classical example of what do we mean by code of ethics. All right. Another one that I didn't go and download it is Walt Disney, because I particularly picked this one was because some years ago that I saw it on the news that they always complain about China, that Walt Disney is going to China and make the children to make the product for them. In other words, they were saying that Walt Disney, you are going to China and use child labor to make all those toys. So I was wondering, is it China really that unethical using child labor? So I go into Walt Disney's ethical, rules, and look at in China when they use those so-called child labor, who are they? And it turned out to be Walt Disney did not, break the rule and unethical. The reason is because that in China, that what is you consider as a child and what you consider as an adult is the age different. So some country was saying that if you are 14 years old, you are belongs to a child and you cannot work. Some countries will say 14 years old and some say 16. So actually in China they did not hire any children to work, but they are all past the age. I guess one of the reason is from the Westerner point of view, they think that Asian people look much younger, than their age. So they always assume that that China must be using child labor, but actually that was not. So the way that we can confirm it is by looking at the law itself. Okay, now so we started with make sure that we hire the right person, and then we will give them a very clear rules and regulations, to look at, letting them know what is right or wrong, right? So in other words, in your, code of conduct, you may say that if any customer give you any gifts, you have to inform the management. All right. So then they know And you may write down, if you collect some gift is over $200, then you have to report to the management. But if it's under $200, then you don't need to. So in other words, is that if customer gives you lychee, is that okay to accept it? Yes, it is okay. So these are all the rules that you can set by your company. All right, next thing is the leadership at the top. Yes, it is. The leader is very important. Doing business ethically requires a very important commitment from the top management. Why? Because we are always look at our boss to decide whether it is acceptable behavior or not, right? So if the boss is not committing in ethical behavior, then we probably think don't worry about it. The boss is the same thing. So the role model, because we always say the leader is a role model in terms of all his actions. More important is the leader, what he is doing is more important than what he is saying. So employees will look at the leader, what they did do, more than what they say, because sometimes people say something and do things different. Now, so leadership at the top is quite important. There are many cases in the world that in the business world that there are corruptions happened, um, mainly is from the leader, from the top, because some of the big crime, corruptions, the lower level do not have the authority and power to commit those kind of corruption. Usually is the senior management. So as a leader, that is very critical. Next thing is the job goals and performance appraisal. All right, now when the workers are start working, there's one thing have to be more careful is your job goal. That means that what you want the worker to achieve. Now we all understand if we have a higher goal, that will make us work harder, right? Because that is motivation, because we will have to work harder for a better goal. We understand, and it is acceptable. But don't go and set a unrealistic goal. In other words, it's quite difficult or impossible to achieve. Because if you give them something much, much more difficult than they can handle, of course, you give them a lot of stress, right? And sometimes when workers think that it is a mission impossible, it is too difficult to achieve, then what happens? They have only two choices. One is to give up, right? If you give up, you fire them, right? But on the other hand, they may use all the unethical way to achieve the objective. Now, I'm sure that a lot of people don't like it, but when they have no choices, so they will cut corner. We say cut corner, and using some, we like to say by hook or by crook. That means that um, using some unethical behavior to achieve whatever necessary to meet the goal itself. So as a managers, when we set goal, uh, I agree it should be a little higher, but you should make that realistic. It is possible to achieve. Otherwise, worker may either give up or just cheat on it. The other one is performance appraisal. That means evaluate the workers' performance. And it is better don't just evaluate them on their economic goals, like how much money they made. You also have to make sure that that are they using the right way to do it. Justify means that using the right way to do so. Um, there are, I think that's although you are young, but I'm not sure if you get a chance to heard of. Several years ago in the world, we have global recession. This time is because of the coronavirus, but last time was because of the global recession. The reason was because there's a company called Lehman Brothers that they the worker there commit some unethical behavior and corrupt the investment market. Now, going back, of course, they find out what is wrong with this guy that who did the corruptions, with the investment market. Um, at that time, that worker also mentions that he's saying that, well, um, our company want us to achieve a certain economic goals. That means that have to give us a quota that we have to meet. And he's saying that, well, the company will only look at the final result, that how much money you make. So he had difficulty meeting that goal. So he was just using other method, cheating to achieve the economical goals. And actually, that time he was doing some fake transactions and what the company called illegal transaction in order to achieve the economic goals. Yeah, it is true. Sometimes we want to look at, it's not just the end result. Is that are they doing it in the right way? Nowadays, a lot of banks, after that experience, is start, focusing on, that are their workers, doing the right things, instead of achieving just the dollar sign. Now, another thing is, to encourage ethical behavior, both ends and means should be evaluated. So you have to evaluate the worker, not just how much you made, but they made, but you also want to evaluate that are they using the right way to do it? Is it like an ethical way to do the business? Now, this is quite critical because I was saying that if you are running the company and you are pushing so much pressure on the workers, sometimes you cannot blame them for using tricks in order to achieve the goal. Now, if that is possible, then you better find out that not only they achieve the goal, are they using the right way? We say that the mean, that the right method, the right procedures in order to achieve the goal set by the company. Right. Now, next one is ethical training. Just like at the beginning when I asked you, can we get license? Is it okay? Some of you say yes, some of you say no. Now, it is true. Some of the things that we really don't know, is it ethical to do it or not? So a lot of big company, every 2 years or 1 years, they will offer some ethical training to their workers because sometimes things change. Sometimes worker forgot about it. So if you're going to work for some big corporation, you will go through this kind of training. So they will have seminar, workshop, or similar ethical training program to encourage workers to have some ethical behavior. This is the reason why when I'm teaching my year 4 student before they get to the business world, I always like to um, invited ICAC to give a talk to my student. Make sure that they understand what can be done and what cannot be done, and so they don't make the mistake. So ethical training for the young and younger workers, I think is necessary. But even the older workers, it is benefit because sometimes we forgot about it. And sometimes if we don't talk about it, we thought that is not important. So it is I was saying that the training is not only for new information, but to refresh, their memory. Next one is independent social audits. This one I will have to ask you some questions. So now I have to find my bar to see where I can see your writing. Sorry about that, I don't know. Okay, here. Writing, all right. Oh, see, they lost my right. They lost my writing. Here it is. Okay. All right. Now, be prepared to answer my question. All right. Mm, let's assume. All right. Um, you are just after 4 years, you graduate. You're going to start working for a company. After you work for the company for 2-3 years, and one day your boss asks you, Do you want to corrupt with me? I mean, of course, not. They will not use the word corruption, right? He say that. Will you join my team? Actually means that to team up with him to do the corruption. And if you don't, I may fire you. But if you do, then I will give you a faster promotion. What will you do? Will you do it with him? Because if you're going to team up with him, you may get faster promotion. Will you do it? Will you do it? Yes, okay. Very honest, yes. Mm-hmm. You will. Oh my goodness. This one say you say okay, but then go and talk to ICAC, huh? I'm surprised all of you say yes. If I were you, I would say no. You know why? Because if I get caught, I'll be in jail. Then, come to think of it, my last 15 years of education will get lost. Because everybody knows that I have a bad record. And honestly, I just graduated from university. I studied so hard for it and I spent so much time to do the study. And now I get caught and be in jail. So I lost my career in my life, almost, right? So if I were you, I would definitely say no. Why? Too risky. Your investment is too high, and that if you get caught, then the rest of your life will have a criminal record. Now let me ask you another question. Objectively, want you to compare it. Let's assume now you are a 50-year-old worker. Um, you have a lot of expense because you have to pay the apartment, but because you still have the installment, so you have to pay for the apartment installment, and your children are growing up, and one of your son would like to go overseas for education, want to study in the university, so it costs you a lot of money. So at this point, if your boss asks you, would you like to join my team? In other words, is to do some corruption business with me? Will you do it at this point? Will you? Different from the last case. Last case was you just graduate, but this one is you are 50 years old. 10 more years you're going to retire. If you say, I quit the job, and it's difficult for you to look for another job. If you have no job, you may have, how are you going to pay for the apartment? How are you going to pay for your son to go for educations? Will you corrupt it with your boss? In this case, and this time you say no. No, okay. What about others? No. This time you all say no? Any more no? Oh, goodness. No? No. No. Well, honestly, my answer will be yes this time. Why? Because if I'm a 50 years old man, it's difficult for me to find another job. If I don't have any income, how I'm going to pay for an apartment? Then my family may not have a place to stay. My son would never get educated, in a university. So in this case means that, am I trying to be ethical? But what about my responsibility to my family? Hmm? Have you thought of it? Now, if I'm young, I don't want to take the risk because I'm single. I can look for another job. But if I am old, I cannot look for another job and I have a lot of responsibility to my family. Will I corrupt with the boss? I probably will say yes. Not because I'm bad, it's just because I care for my family. Will you agree with me? Hmm? Now, this is a very common phenomenon in the societies. A lot of people, not that they don't like to be ethical, it's only that because of the background, because of the responsibility and other things, they have no choice. Okay, so you may say, "Oh, we are sympathetic, or we feel sorry for the old man." Now, but then on the other hand, you have to think of if you are the boss, would you like this old man to cheat on you? You understand, he is in trouble because he needs the money for his family, but do you want him to cheat on you? I'm sure as a manager or you are the owner of the company, you don't want to, right? So the question is, you don't want to punish people. You do care about the workers. So what would be the best way that none of this is going to happen? Of course, prevention is the best, right? That's why I'm saying that if you really learn and know management, there are few things you will always use it as your, guideline. One, always positive. You try to be positive first. Until it won't work, then you will punish people. But use it as the last one. Always think of how you can improve instead of punish. All right. The second thing is you have to think of how you can prevent that the problem will come out. Because if you prevent it, the problem will not come out, then you don't have to punish people, right? So one of the best way to prevent people from, unwillingly to commit crime is to have what we call the independent social audit. That means you are going to have an outsider to check on the company. In that case, the boss and the workers will dare not to team up to cheat. The reason is if, that they will be outsider to check on them. Now, let's say one day if my boss tell me to cheat the business with him, and I will tell my boss, I cannot do it because when the outside auditor come in, we both will be in trouble. So independent social audit is a very good way to prevent workers to commit the crime or to violate the rule. Now, even you are studying in Hang Seng U, we also have independent social audits. And in the university, we call it external examiner. The external examiner will look at all my course outline, and they will look at students' um, um, homework, will look at students' examination paper. Because examiner will want to see if I set my exam too easy, so all my students get A, then they think that it is not ethical. And, you know, they don't want me to feel like that, oh, if I don't like the student, I'm going to fail them. Then that is not fair. So if I give you an A, if I give you the high grade, external examiner would like to see your exam paper that do you really deserve an A, or I just, didn't grade your paper and just give you an A. Now, if I fail you, I guarantee I will have all the documents prepared because I will have to send it to the external examiner to look at it. So if I give you a very good grade or very bad grade, I will have to make sure that I keep all the record and will show it to the external examiner that, I am doing it fairly and, equally. So I think that is very good practice, right? So if you have an outsider, the outsider don't have any interest in your organizations, so you cannot fire them, right? So in that case, they are very fair, very careful, and very objectively evaluate the company's, performance and the workers' behavior. So nowadays, really, all organizations will have this kind of independent social audits, from outsiders. If you are a company which is listed on the stock market, government will require that every year, at least once, you will have a external auditor to audit the company, make sure that all the you know procedures are followed. Okay, now so let's look at the last one. It's called protective mechanism. Protective mechanism means that if something goes wrong, you should allow the employee to go to talk to some senior management and won't get punished. So, for example, Disneyland, the CEO tell the worker if they see any, you know, unethical behavior, they are allowed to what they call speak up. Go to the senior, not only their boss, the senior management, and speak up, and you will not get punished. So my protective mechanism, let's say, with your group project, because I'm worried that they will have some free rider. So next week I will give you more information about the group project. Is that um, you will you can fill in what I call the peer evaluation form, which I already uploaded in Moodle, and you don't have to um, submit to me except if you are doing online submission. So if you find that you have a free rider in your group, so fill in that peer evaluation form and email to me directly and let me see that if there are some free rider in your group or not. All right. So I purposely do it now and tell every student and even show you the peer evaluation form. Actually, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to practice this so-called protective mechanism system. That means that I want to let all students know that if you are a free rider, your team member may report it to me. Last semester, I think that few students got a lower grade in the group project was because the team member have support saying that they never participate in the group project discussion and only write 2 3 sentences. Well, in that case, I give them 10% of the group project grade. I did it is because I want to make sure that students who are hardworking will get their fair share of the grading. All right. Now, so here are some of the suggestions that I have for you. In the future, you can go up to the ICAC's website. This is their website, and look at. They actually have some practical guideline for different kind of professional, because if you are in a different professionals, you may have a different guideline. So in the future, if you are an engineer, a banker, tourist, you are in tourism industry or foreign investment or accounting and all this, they have the some of the guideline for you to follow if you are one of these kind of categories. Now, of course, I don't want you to go into detail now because I don't want you to memorize all these things. But in the future, when you start working, you can always check on the website. At least that will give you some minimum information about what you can do and what you cannot do in the organizations. All right. So this is for your future reference. All right, that's all I'm going to have for you today. For next week, since we are going to have the face-to-face um, class, then you do not need to submit it in the Microsoft Teams. All you need to is read this case, and when you come to the class next week, for the face-to-face in-class discussion, I will let your team sit together and do some discussion, because that is the beauty of face-to-face, is that you get a chance to talk to each other. And then each team will give me some feedback, what your team think of this case. All right. So next week you will probably will have, I was saying that at least 30 minutes to get to know your team member and discuss with your team member about the case, and verbally tell me in the class itself. All right. So you do not need to write that in the Microsoft Team, because again, face to face is give us a chance to discuss and stimulate our idea. All right. Any questions? Any questions so far? You doing all right? Okay. No question. All right. Now, if that is the case, maybe let me go and look at your last week's in-class exercise. All right. Let me get the paper out first. Let's see if I can close this one.